Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now, we're taking a look here today at THORChain, which is Rune, and it's a fantastic coin. Highly recommend you check this out. Obviously, the reason why you're watching this video in the first place, you probably already invested or considering doing so. So kudos on that. But just note that the price has increased significantly. And I want to thank you to my community members. Thank you, Paris, of course, for recommending that I cover this here. Really appreciate you and all of your support through my Patron community, of course. Moving forward, I am not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should do your own research, and just note that I am not a financial advisor, but I have years of trading experience, and my goal is to help you become a better trader, a little bit more effective. We always look at the technical analysis. There's no fundamentals here. You're not going to see any hype, of course, because of the fact that I don't think that is necessary in trading. We need to take emotion out of the equation and trade logically. So hopefully if you find benefit, feel free to consider subscribing. If not, that's okay too. But more importantly, check out my Telegram community. I have some really good group of folks there, and I also have a Signal group that I provide entry points, best practice, sell targets, profit targets, the whole 9 yards. I share all of my trades with my patrons. So there's a link in the description below for that as well. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and get to the charts. Let's check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look here at Rune. And just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first to get a baseline of the market so know exactly what's going on. Because if we don't look at Bitcoin, there's no sense in trading, right? Because Bitcoin kind of controls the market, as well as the fact that a lot of coins are on the ERC20 blockchain, which is why Ethereum's relevant as well. So we'll take a look at that here. And just before we do, I'd like to preface that I use TradingView.com desktop application to get that question unlocked. And this is essentially the best charting tool you could utilize. It works for stocks, bonds, everything, but really well for cryptocurrency. Okay. Now, I recommend the paid versions because it gives you more than 2 indicators present at any given time. There's a link in the description below for a free month there if you'd like to check that out, see if you like it or not. But I would recommend that because even though I only try to use 2 indicators per time frame because I don't like a lot of noise, I use 5 or 6 different time frames commonly. So it makes more sense to have that access, right? So that's why I use it, but I trade every single day, so that's kind of a different story. That being said, why don't we go ahead and enable the simple moving averages here, first of all, and just so you kind of know what's going on here, because there's major support and resistance levels for Bitcoin right now. First of all, the 50 is working as a support, same with the 200 potentially. Of course, they haven't been tested in a little while, but the price is getting closer to the 50, and we'll see if that works as a support level moving forward. We have a major resistance at 50,000, a support here now, which is a previous resistance at 47,800, and then of course we've got 47,000 as a secondary support. So we've got 2 or 3 good support levels here, the 50 plus these 2 here as well. That should keep the price above this level. I do feel as if the price is going to work its way up to this point this weekend and then retrace, of course, once Monday starts, because commonly Monday we see a lot of sell-off based on the fact that the whales are back in business. They sell all the profits that we brought the price up over the weekend, right? Because there's a lot less overall volume on the weekends than there are on the weekdays. That being said, that's kind of the state of Bitcoin right now on the 4-hour chart. Looking at Ethereum, it's pretty much the same thing in a lot of ways, right? It's got a very similar pattern. The price is above the 50-day simple moving average and the 200. We've got a support at 2,900 and of course a new support at 3,250. This is working out to be a pretty strong support level here, as you can see. Moving forward, let's go ahead and take a look here at Rune. So first things first, we look at the 1-day chart. And I always like to look at this to identify the average true range first, or just how did it perform when Bitcoin sold off previously. It's important to understand that because quality matters, right? Some coins move independent of Bitcoin, some move alongside it, some are identical. And it looks to me that Rune does very well regardless of what Bitcoin does. And let me explain that. First of all, we see April 17th here. That's this little tiny red candle. That was the first major sell-off in Bitcoin. All the major altcoins, well, even the minor coins, pretty much everything, right? Bitcoin went down 15% in one day. Most coins went down that day and had this downward angle. Now, of course, you can see the retracement here, obviously, but it's not that much considered. Furthermore, it ramped up even better here too, which a lot of coins did that as well. Yes, it's true, but it didn't lose much, right? So through April 17th all the way to the 25th, it retraced very minor. Also note as well, it is not impervious to Bitcoin, because obviously the China candle had a lot to do with everyone. That's pretty much the biggest the worst red day we can count in the last year or two, and that really sent the price down. So yes, it It did very well independent of Bitcoin, but it's still reliant. So just keep that in mind. I would say overall, Rune does really well on its own, but it helps that Bitcoin is doing better, right? If that makes sense. But anyways, what I want to try to get at here is just before all that happened, its average range was somewhere in the range of about $13 upwards of 16. In fact, if we go, prior to just say that since, April 17th wasn't a big sell-off for Rune, we could pretty much just say that, the May 19th was a major catalyst there. Its average true range was somewhere between 11, where it's at right now, and $20. So, you split the difference there, 15.50, somewhere in that range. That is essentially its average true range is right around $15.50. Okay. So that's kind of like right in the middle here. Now, that being said, the price is at $11.50 right now. So there's a good chance that it will return back to that $15 range in the near future, especially if Bitcoin can surpass 50,000. Okay, so keep that in mind. Yes, it's moving independent of Bitcoin, specifically more so today, but it's also relying on Bitcoin's success to an extent. Price is over the 200, which is great. We had this death cross, so to speak, that came down, drove the price down, but the 200 is above the 50, whereas the 50 will likely come up and intersect with it, driving the price up even further. Okay, so that could very well continue to push the price up with the golden cross, which can occur. It's kind of an anomaly. Well, not an anomaly. It actually happens more frequent than you'd think, but I think it's kind of 50-50 whether or not the price will shoot up or if it'll just kind of continue on its merry way. But it does consistently drive the price up more so than down, right? So I don't put a lot of weight into it, but that is something that could happen. We're a ways off from that, but just know that's a possibility. We've got the RSI up over 70. It's about 75 right now, so there's still some room for growth, but I would venture to guess that we might see some sideways action for a little while. But let's go ahead and see if we can identify any major support and resistance levels. There was a pretty strong resistance that it broke through here today at 975. So we'll just go ahead and mark that. We'll just do this here. All right. Because as you can see, it was tested twice here recently, rejected, and then obviously rejected about 5 or 6 times previously. So that's the new support, 975. Major resistance, I would say, we don't have any major resistances. I mean, we do have a range of between 1330 and 14. Let's say 14 as a round number as the next major resistance. So we kind of working ourselves into this channel here. All right, so we're halfway through there for the channel, but just keep in mind, its average true range is about 1550, somewhere right up about here. Therefore, I think it's a strong likelihood for the price to continue upwards after perhaps some consolidation, but we'll look at some smaller time frames to kind of identify and see what that means. First of all, we're up over the 50 on the 4-hour chart, which is fantastic. It's working as a support level. Also, same with the 200. RSI is up over 80. However, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to sell, but you can see there's a lot of overextension here, and the RSI is obviously very high. So oftentimes when the RSI gets over 80, there's a strong chance it'll retrace or go sideways. Now this is a strong bull run. There's a chance it might go sideways before it goes down. That'd be great. It's a little early to tell, but at this point in time, I would say that we're going to see some sideways action, at least here in the near future. But we'll see if it's overextended. It should be. Usually when you got 3 4-hour candlesticks in a row that are pumping this hard, especially that's about 26%, then there's a strong chance we're going to see a little bit of sideways action and then an increase. Moving on to the 1-hour chart, let's go ahead and take a quick look here at the TD sequential. Actually, before we do, let's look at the Ishimoku cloud and see. Obviously, we're up over the cloud, which is good. So just note there's a buy signal above the cloud, or when the price is below the cloud, it's considered a sell signal. And if you're new to the channel or you're like new to setting this up, just disable the first 5 options, because you can see there's a lot of noise when this happens. And it's best just to omit that altogether and keep your charts clean. Don't get me wrong, those are very beneficial and impactful in certain ways, but not for somebody that might be starting off. Do your own research there on the cloud, but the best way to do it is just to use this cloud here and to kind of understand that price is above, it's considered a buy signal, and when it's below, it's considered a short. But as we can see here, price is well above, so that should be working as a support level moving forward. And a lot of times, if the price goes sideways and the cloud comes up, it'll work itself as a support level. Okay. Again, that's not consistent, but that does happen. We also want to look here at TD sequential. That's the main reason why I pulled this up. And I want to show you here. This is what I kind of rely on for the most part when it comes to exhaustion, because we're in this state right now where we're in between 2 major support and resistance levels. We're like literally right in between them, right? So let's see if I can, there you go. So, we're right in the middle. There's no major support and resistance levels in between here. So it's kind of uncharted territory for the most part. And, with Bitcoin kind of coming up on 50,000, potentially going to break that, if Bitcoin doesn't break 50,000, which I don't think it will soon, I think it'll test and reject, just based on that being a pretty strong resistance level, then we're going to probably see Rune do something similar and go sideways for a little bit of time. And the main reason why I think that is just based on the fact that we're in overtime right now. So take a look at here. Let me give you an example here. So how TD sequential works is it basically counts from 1 to a 9, and then commonly after 9 hours, this being a 1 hour chart, right? After 9 hours, you get a state of exhaustion and or just consolidation. In other words, when it gets to a 9, it should reset and start coming back down. It's kind of the natural ebbs and flow of trading, right? So when you see this here, when this was counting up, we got 1 to a 9. And then it kept going, it stopped counting, and then eventually started counting a 1 in the downside. But this basically means this was an overtime right here. In other words, it got higher than it should have because that was considered a bull run. Now, if we look right here at this point now, same thing's happening. We've got a state of exhaustion. We've hit a 9 already. We're in overtime, so likelihood of this continuing upwards is lower than it is high, right? So there's a stronger chance the price will retrace or go sideways if nothing else to kind of reset that counter, to allow for this bull run to continue, right? Because any good bull run, if you're kind of, if you've noticed, any good bull run will have a pattern. It'll basically have an up-over pattern. It'll basically do a staircase, right? So we want to see something like this in order for this to continue. Okay, so just something to note. That's kind of what I always look for, is a healthy bull run. Right now, it is still healthy. It's just if it goes up much higher and just say it tries to go up here and test 14, you can expect it to retrace at least 50% of the way that it started, because it has that natural law of trading. What goes up must come down by 50%. You see that in cryptocurrency more often than not because of how hard things tend to pump. But that being said, I mean, we're definitely in overtime. You can even look at the 4-hour chart when it comes to TD sequential. It's telling us that we are well past a point in which we need to kind of retrace or calm the price down, right? That's why the RSI is up over 85 on the 4-hour chart here, right? Because of the simple fact that it's considered to be overbought. Okay, so again, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just means it's not a buy signal right now. We want to kind of see and wait how the price responds to A, this support level here, or B, the VWAP and or EMA lines on the 15-minute chart. Why don't we go ahead and take a look at that next here? So we're all kind of done with everything else. So you can see a lot of price action here in the last just a couple of hours alone, 20-25%. And what we're going to do here is we're going to enable EMA and VWAP. Now, this is one of my favorite tools. I have one that's kind of merged two things together. You can enable VWAP and enable EMA 15 separately, but I have it built together, so it gives me a notification when I'm ready to buy. And I have my own way of getting confirmation, right? Because having been trading for a long time, I don't like to just jump in arbitrarily without confirmation, without knowing that either the bulls are in control if I'm going long, or I have price above support. Those are important, right? So we've already identified prices over this support level here. That's why it broke through. That's why we saw a big short squeeze right here. Like this right here is all the shorts getting squeezed out of the major support level, or previous resistance, of course. Now, that being said, the price is over support. Fantastic. So we know if the price comes back down, it'll test and stay above 975. Furthermore, the price is above VWAP. And what VWAP is the volume weighted average price. If you're new to the channel, I recommend utilizing this at all times because it's a really helpful indicator to help you understand if the price is above support or below support. It's a continuous support based on the volume, which is a very underrated metric. Now, VWAP stands for volume weighted average price. It takes the volume of the last 24 hours, expresses it as a price. It resets at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every single day, which is the end of a traditional trading day. Now, that being said, if we look at this variance here right now, we're up about 12%. Anytime it goes up over 10%, the standard deviation gets too high and it needs to come back down. So we're overextended right now on a lot of different ways. We've already identified that. But even furthermore, we're too far away from the VWAP to feel comfortable with taking entry. Furthermore, on top of that as well, we can also see the EMA. That's this red line here. That's basically telling us the bulls are in control, because when the price is above EMA, it works as kind of a support or a momentous indicator. EMA is the same thing that's utilized on the MACD, by the way. The MACD has a 12 and a 26 exponential moving average. The 12 intersects in an upward fashion, telling the bulls are taking control and the bears have conceded, right? Same thing with a divergence. The bears are in control and the bulls are essentially giving way. So that happens here, only it's layered on top of the price action, which is nice because when the price bounces like it does here and possibly here, it keeps the price above and keeps that momentum going. Now, based on the fact that this is overextended right now, I feel like we are going to at least see some sideways action. I don't think we're going to see much more of a pump yet, unless Bitcoin just goes on a tear and just drills through 50,000. Then we'll probably see this continue because this state of exhaustion isn't super important when it comes to Bitcoin doing very well. When Bitcoin pumps, the other coins like this do too, even if they're in an overextended state. That being said, just highly recommend if you're considering taking entry, wait on two things. Wait for the price, come down, and to test EMA first. It'll probably lose EMA, start to regress, it'll start to retrace, and then it'll come down and probably test the VWAP as well and possibly break, but likely stay above just based on the fact that this shouldn't retrace significantly, considering the fact that it's calming down now and we're going to see some sideways action. And if it happens to, just say break both EMA and VWAP, that's never a good sign to buy. Wait for it to find its bottom. It'll probably find its bottom at 975 and bounce off the support level and continue back upwards. That's a case in point where I like to buy the dip at major support levels. Never buy the dip arbitrarily if it's just kind of, it's like, oh great, it's really oversold. I'm going to buy now. No, don't do that because that is not a good place to be. You're basically gambling. Only buy the dip when it bounces off of support levels. That's the case in point where I thrive. I utilize that in Bitcoin all the time. I trade Bitcoin with my signal group, by the way. I have a signal group where I send signals for all my entry points, profit targets, sell targets, and I send that to my patrons, and I share all of my trades with them. But I trade Bitcoin for the most part because of the fact that it has such strong support and resistance levels that when the dip happens and the price comes down to a support, it's commonly, more often than not, a good idea to buy that dip because of the fact that it's a major support level, right? Again, you want to have a lot of factors swinging in your favor here, but we've already identified here that we're above the cloud. Great, yes, buy signal. But we're also overextended on both the 4-hour and the 1-hour charts for TD sequential, and furthermore, we are overextended here with the standard deviation being too high from the VWAP line. So these are all considerations to understand that, if nothing else, best case scenario, we'll see some sideways action, but more than likely, we'll see the price retrace a little bit, bounce off EMA and VWAP, and continue on its way. And again, heaven forbid that happens. 975 is our next major support level. That'll likely hold if the price comes back down that far. So if you found benefit here, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much to my current members and my patrons, of course, for recommending that I cover this. We'll look forward to seeing you on Telegram. Feel free to message me if you'd like, and appreciate your time. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you.